The scene that unfolded inside a major Chicago mall was not the ordinary bustle of shoppers moving from store to store, but rather an eruption of chaos that left the building resembling the aftermath of a battlefield. Groups stormed through the doors, their focus not on browsing racks or enjoying the bright lights of consumer life, but on grabbing whatever could be carried away. Windows shattered, shelves were stripped bare in minutes, and entire storefronts were left gutted. The sounds of alarms blaring over the noise of rushing feet painted a surreal picture of a shopping hub turned into a zone of disorder. Security cameras captured the waves of people pouring through aisles, moving in coordination that felt less like a random outburst and more like a planned raid. Shoppers who had come expecting an ordinary day of leisure were left running for exits, clutching children, or pressing themselves into corners to stay out of harm's way. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. This plundering was not just a momentary lapse in order, but the eruption of a wider storm brewing in Illinois. The state's decision to embrace a policy that critics deride as a no jails approach has created a climate where law enforcement appears increasingly toothless. Those who stormed the mall acted with a boldness that suggested they did not fear immediate consequence. Each shattered display case was a statement that boundaries had dissolved, that the deterrent once supplied by the justice system had been eroded. In a city already known for struggles with crime, the image of mobs stripping merchandise without pause became a symbol of a policy gone terribly wrong. Chicago has long been viewed as a flashpoint for debates over crime and justice in America. The decision to move toward a system that reduces reliance on incarceration was presented as a progressive step, aiming to reduce overcrowding in prisons and address social inequities. Yet the mall incident shows how theory collides with harsh reality. A strategy that promised rehabilitation and alternatives to jail is now being interpreted by many as a green light for lawlessness. Where once the fear of arrest and detention acted as a barrier, now the absence of that threat emboldens groups to act in broad daylight in crowded commercial centers with cameras rolling and alarms screaming. The symbolism of a mall being looted cannot be ignored. A mall represents not just commerce, but a communal space where people gather. It is a modern agora where families spend weekends, teenagers linger with friends, and small businesses thrive alongside national chains. To see it overrun and pillaged is to witness an assault on one of the last bastions of shared civic life. It is not only property stolen, but a sense of safety shattered. Parents will hesitate before letting their children hang out at the mall. Workers who once relied on steady retail jobs will face uncertainty. The fabric of normal life weakens each time such an event occurs. The sheer coordination of the plundering raised further alarm. This was not a single shoplifter slipping goods under a coat or a desperate individual grabbing groceries. It was a demonstration of force, a show of numbers, an organized swarm, overwhelming security measures. That level of brazenness does not appear overnight. It grows from a perception that rules no longer carry weight. When groups believe they can storm through a mall, strip shelves, and vanish into the streets without meaningful consequence, they send a message to others. The system is broken, and opportunity favors those willing to take. The economic consequences ripple quickly. Stores already struggling with rising costs and inflation must now account for staggering losses in stolen merchandise. Insurance claims skyrocket, premiums climb, and many smaller outlets find themselves unable to recover. Mall operators fear losing anchor tenants, the big-name retailers that draw crowds and keep properties alive. If chains decide Chicago is too volatile to operate in, entire commercial zones could wither, leaving behind vacant shells that attract further disorder. Local tax revenues fall as commerce erodes, affecting schools, public services, and infrastructure. What begins as smashed windows and stolen goods cascades into long-term damage that stretches far beyond the mall's walls. Law enforcement officials in Chicago find themselves in a tightening vice. On one hand, they are tasked with protecting citizens and property. On the other, they face restrictions from new laws that reduce their power to detain offenders. Officers who might once have swept in and arrested dozens now hesitate, knowing that charges may not stick or that suspects will be released swiftly without bail. The frustration among rank-and-file police grows as they risk confrontation, but see little long-term effect. Each release becomes a signal to both officers and offenders that the old rules no longer apply. The mall plundering also erodes public trust in leadership. Residents look to city officials and state lawmakers to safeguard order, but the sight of gangs looting with apparent impunity makes many feel abandoned. Business owners ask why they should pay taxes or invest in storefronts if protection is not guaranteed. Shoppers wonder if the government values ideological experiments over their basic safety. The credibility of those in power diminishes each time policy translates into real-world harm, and once that trust is broken, it is nearly impossible to restore. Beyond economics and safety, the incident exposes a deeper moral crisis. A society where groups can openly plunder without fear is one where the line between right and wrong has blurred dangerously. Communities thrive on a shared belief in fairness and responsibility. When that belief crumbles, when individuals watch mobs rewarded for lawlessness while victims receive little recourse, resentment festers. Law-abiding citizens begin to ask why they should follow rules that others disregard so easily. The social contract weakens, and without it, civic life frays into suspicion and fragmentation. For young people watching events unfold, the consequences are profound. Teenagers and children see images of peers storming through malls, grabbing expensive electronics or designer clothes, and returning home without punishment. The message is clear: risk is low, reward is high. In neighborhoods already struggling with poverty and limited opportunity, such examples become alluring. A new generation grows up believing that taking by force is easier and more profitable than working within the system. That cultural shift plants seeds of long-term instability. Chicago's mall plundering reveals how quickly control can unravel when deterrence disappears. A justice system designed to balance compassion with accountability must maintain credibility. In Illinois, the pendulum has swung so far toward leniency that it risks collapsing the very structure of order. Advocates may have envisioned alternatives to incarceration as pathways to equity, but reality shows that without strong enforcement, equity itself cannot survive. Those who suffer most are often the very communities reform was meant to protect, as businesses leave and jobs vanish, leaving behind only the scars of chaos. The visual impact of the event resonates beyond Chicago. Images and videos spread across social media within minutes, creating a global perception of disorder in one of America's largest cities. Tourists considering Chicago hesitate. Investors eye the headlines and shift capital elsewhere. Other cities watch closely, some viewing Illinois' experiment as a warning of what happens when enforcement weakens, others emboldened to test similar policies. The mall, once a local center of commerce, becomes a stage upon which national debates over justice and crime play out for all to see. At the heart of this disaster lies a question of balance. Every society must grapple with how to punish crime, how to rehabilitate offenders, and how to safeguard the innocent. But when balance tips too far, when rehabilitation is prioritized to the exclusion of deterrence, chaos fills the void. The Chicago mall raid is a visceral reminder that theory must withstand reality and that the safety of ordinary people cannot be treated as collateral in social experiments. The broader implications stretch into politics. Critics of the no jails strategy seize on the mall incident as proof that reforms are reckless. Campaigns build narratives around footage of mobs carrying armloads of stolen goods. Opponents demand stronger penalties, louder policing, and a reversal of reforms. Meanwhile, defenders of the policy find themselves scrambling to explain, often appearing disconnected from the anguish of victims and the fury of residents. Elections pivot on such moments, and Illinois risks becoming a cautionary tale for the entire nation. The psychological scars are equally severe. Workers who were inside the mall that day carry memories of fear, of watching mobs surge through their stores. Many will struggle to return, haunted by the feeling that violence could erupt again at any moment. Shoppers who fled in panic will avoid malls, turning instead to online retail, which further erodes local economies. The sense of security once tied to community spaces dissolves, replaced by wariness and withdrawal. That erosion of confidence is difficult to measure, but devastating in effect. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Chicago's mall plundering amid no jails? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.